Why it's okay to walk away from draining relationships. Have you ever sat at your kitchen table, hands wrapped around a cup of warm tea, and wondered why some people leave you feeling more tired after they visit than before they arrived? You smile. You nod. You listen. But when the door finally closes behind them, you feel like someone just pulled the plug on your energy. It's not just that you're older now, or that you tire more easily. No. This is different. This is the slow, invisible drain that comes from relationships that take far more than they give. And here's something we don't talk about enough. It's okay to walk away. Yes. Even at your age. Especially at your age. Because the truth is, your time and your peace are more valuable now than they've ever been. You've worked hard, you've raised children, maybe buried people you love, and watched the world change in ways you never thought it could. You've earned the right to surround yourself with people who respect your presence, not just demand your attention. But the hard part? We were raised to be polite. To forgive. To let things slide. And sometimes, we carry that like a badge of honor, even when it's hurting us. I remember a woman named Carol I met at a community center last year. She was 74, always dressed in soft pastels, with gentle hands and a smile that could melt any room. But beneath that smile, Carol was exhausted. Every Wednesday, she'd host her niece and nephew, grown adults in their 40s. They'd show up late, argue about money, dump their problems onto her like she was a therapist, then leave without so much as helping her wash the dishes. She told me, I love them, but after they go, I can't even sleep. My chest feels heavy. That heaviness? That's your spirit telling you something. It's saying, this connection is costing too much. And no, it doesn't mean you stop loving them. It means you love yourself enough to draw a line. Sometimes, walking away doesn't mean slamming doors or angry words. It can be as simple as choosing not to answer every phone call. Or saying, not today. I need some time for me. But here's the real challenge for many of us. We're afraid. Afraid of being alone. Afraid of feeling guilty. Afraid of what others will say. And that fear? It can keep us stuck in relationships that chip away at our joy, little by little, until we start to believe that's all we deserve. But let me ask you this. What if walking away is actually a gift? A gift to yourself. A gift to your peace of mind. A chance to reclaim the quiet in your life. We often assume relationships are forever. That just because someone is family or a longtime friend, we owe them access to our lives. But the truth is, not everyone deserves a front row seat to your heart, especially if all they do is throw stones at it. Your soul isn't a doormat. It's a garden. And some people? They come in and trample it without even noticing the flowers. So maybe it's time to become the kind of gardener who knows when to close the gate. Not out of bitterness, but out of wisdom. There's no rule that says you must tolerate people who drain you just because you've known them for years. Love doesn't mean endless sacrifice. And kindness doesn't mean self-erasure. I once heard someone say, the people who truly care about you won't make you feel like you have to disappear to keep the peace. And they were right. You deserve to be seen, heard, valued. And that begins with seeing and valuing yourself enough to say, this doesn't feel right anymore. Now, I'm not saying you walk away from every difficult conversation or every disagreement. No relationship is perfect. But there's a difference between a rough patch and a pattern of pain. There's a difference between someone who challenges you and someone who drains you. And learning to tell the difference is a form of emotional freedom. So today, as you go about your routine, maybe folding laundry, maybe watering the plants, I invite you to gently ask yourself, who in my life truly nourishes me? And who leaves me feeling smaller, not stronger? Because your answer to that question? That's where your healing begins. You know, people often think walking away means slamming doors and burning bridges. But sometimes, it's simply choosing not to carry what was never yours to hold in the first place. I once sat next to a gentleman named Robert on a park bench. He was 69, widowed for nearly a decade, and still wore his wedding band like a quiet badge of devotion. As we chatted, he spoke softly about his son, how their relationship had changed. Not in some explosive, dramatic way, but in little, painful ways that added up over time. The sarcasm. The dismissiveness. The way his son would roll his eyes whenever Robert mentioned his opinions. Robert said, "It's like I don't matter in my own child's life anymore. But I still pick up the phone, still send birthday cards, still hope he'll change." That kind of waiting can wear you down like a slow tide over rocks. It's not loud. It's not violent. But it's relentless. I looked at him and gently asked, "And what would happen if you stopped chasing that version of him? If you allowed space for both of you?" He blinked, and I'll never forget what he said next. He whispered, "I think I'd finally breathe." So many of us have been holding our breath for years, tiptoeing around people we love, shrinking ourselves to keep the peace, hoping they'll notice our pain without us having to say a word. But peace that requires your silence isn't peace. It's quiet pain. And sometimes, the most loving thing you can do is stop trying to fix what doesn't want to be fixed. To stop twisting yourself into knots just to keep someone else comfortable. To recognize that not everyone is meant to walk with you through every chapter of your life. Some were only meant for a page, and that's okay. There's a myth that after 60, your world gets smaller. That you should cling tightly to every connection you have, even if it hurts, because you're lucky to have anyone at all. But that's not the truth. That's fear dressed up as wisdom. The truth is, your heart is still wide open. Your time is still sacred. Your presence is still a gift. And that means you don't have to accept breadcrumbs just to feel connected. One woman told me, "But he's my brother. We've always fought. That's just how it is." And I asked her, "Is that how you want it to stay?" Family ties may be strong, but they aren't unbreakable, not when they become chains. And friendship, as beautiful as it is, should never feel like a performance. Here's something no one says enough. It's not your job to teach someone how to treat you. It's your job to show them by how you treat yourself. When you protect your energy, when you say no without guilt, when you walk away from emotional chaos, you're setting a new standard. Not just for others, but for your own soul. Because boundaries aren't walls. They're bridges to a more peaceful you. There will always be people who don't understand why you pulled away. That's okay. Let them misunderstand. Let them call you distant or cold or ungrateful. You don't owe anyone your exhaustion to prove you're kind. What you owe yourself is rest. What you owe your heart is gentleness. What you owe this season of life is peace. And don't let anyone make you feel selfish for choosing it. I know, letting go can feel like loss. But often, it's freedom disguised. It's the chance to pour your energy into people and places that light you up instead of weigh you down. Think about the conversations that leave you smiling when they're over. The people who ask how you are and actually wait for your answer. The ones who listen with both ears, not just waiting for their turn to speak. That's what you deserve. That's what love should feel like. So the next time you feel guilt creeping in, telling you to keep showing up for someone who keeps taking without giving, I want you to pause. Breathe. And remind yourself that love is not supposed to cost you your well-being. You are not the emotional sponge for other people's storms. You are not the solution to someone else's chaos. You are not obligated to bleed just because someone else refuses to heal. You are allowed to say, "This is hurting me." You are allowed to say, "I need space." You are allowed to say, "I'm done." And when you do, something beautiful happens. You begin to hear your own voice again. That quiet whisper that says, "I matter." Even if I walk away. Especially if I walk away. I know none of this is easy. Especially when you've spent most of your life believing that walking away means failure. That cutting ties means giving up. That distance equals resentment. But here's a truth worth holding on to. Sometimes the strongest, kindest, most life-affirming choice is to let go. Letting go doesn't mean you hate them. It doesn't mean you've stopped caring. It means you've started caring for yourself. And after 60, after everything you've carried, survived, and sacrificed, caring for yourself isn't just important. It's essential. Because peace is not a luxury at this age. It's your right. And anything, or anyone, that keeps stealing your peace, bit by bit, doesn't belong at the center of your life. You've earned mornings that begin with stillness, not stress. You deserve calls that warm your heart, not ones you dread answering. You have every right to choose ease over obligation. I once met a woman named Hilda, 82 years old, sharp as a tack and dressed in bright scarves like she was always ready for a party. I asked her the secret to her joy, and she laughed and said, "Oh honey, I stopped trying to be everything to everyone a long time ago. I only keep people around me who bring sunshine or silence, nothing in between." There was no bitterness in her voice. Only peace. She had made her choice. And she stood by it, not out of pride, but out of wisdom. That kind of clarity doesn't come overnight. But it starts with a question that's quietly powerful. Do I feel more like myself when I'm with this person, or less? If the answer is less, then it may be time to gently, lovingly step back. And if you do, know this. You are not cruel. You are not selfish. You are not a bad friend, child, parent, or partner. You are simply someone who has realized that your emotional well-being matters, too. There are people who will stay angry when you stop letting them use you. Let them. There are people who will call you difficult when you stop making everything easy for them. Let them. There are people who will gossip, twist your words, and say you've changed. And you know what? Let them say it. Because you have changed. You've grown. You've awakened. You've finally decided to stop dimming your light to keep others comfortable in the dark. You're no longer asking for permission to protect your joy. And if there are people in your life who truly love you, really, deeply love you, they will not only respect your boundaries, they'll honor them. They'll make room for your voice. They'll notice when you're tired. They'll show up without draining you dry. Because real love, the kind that nourishes, heals, and lasts, never asks you to sacrifice yourself. So maybe today is the day you make a quiet promise. Not to the world. Not to anyone else. Just to you. A promise that says, from now on, I choose peace. I choose presence. I choose me. And if you ever feel doubt creeping in, if that old guilt tries to whisper you back into emotional exhaustion, I want you to remember this moment. This breath. This truth. You are worthy of rest. You are worthy of relationships that leave you feeling full, not hollow. You are worthy of walking away from the noise, the chaos, the weight, and stepping into the wide, open space of your own peace. You are not alone. You are not too late. You are not too much. You are exactly where you're meant to be. Standing tall. Heart open. And finally free. If any part of this touched something in you, I invite you to share it in the comments. Your story might be exactly what someone else needs to hear today. And if you haven't already, I'd love for you to like this video and subscribe to Elderly Wisdom 1969. Every week, we share honest, heart-centered conversations to help you live with more clarity, more confidence, and more joy at any age. Here's to living life on your terms. To honoring your heart. And to walking away when you need to, without shame, without fear, and with your head held high. You've got this. And you've got so much more ahead.